Where do you find God? Almost sounds like a loaded question, doesn't it? I mean, if God was someone you could find, wouldn't everyone be out searching? Well, rather than looking for something elusive, like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I reckon it's more about learning to recognise the way God is already present to us in our everyday lives. I'm Lizzie Oakes, and this is Where Do You Find God? My guest on the podcast today is zooming in all the way from Texas. Anna Harris is the founder of Defined by God Ministries. She's a certified trauma and resilience coach, and she's also the author of Not Abandoned. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast.
Anna, just give us an overview of Not Abandoned. It's an amazing book. I've read it, but for those people who haven't discovered it yet, tell us about it.
Yes, so it's basically my story of growing up feeling very abandoned and rejected because I had been adopted at birth. And my story of healing through my relationship with God. And then many years later, realizing that growing up, I had had symptoms of PTSD from trauma from the womb and separation from my birth mother. And then I tell my story of finally finding my birth family. And my birth mother had passed away, but she had also looked for me. So it's my story. And I love to tell it because it's got such redeeming qualities of God's love in our lives.
Yeah, an amazing book, Not Abandoned, and people can actually purchase it via Amazon, can't they?
Yes, it's on Amazon. There are links on my website, definedbygod.com, where you can also find the book.
And in Acts chapter 17, verse 27, it says, God intended that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. So my question for you today, Anna, is where do you find God?
Well, I think for me, I find him in my heart. What I love to do is pause, breathe, reflect, and listen. And because I really feel that God is always with us. The question is, are we aware of him being with us? And I love where, Jesus said in John 14 that if we love him, he and the Father will make their home with us. And so they are always with us. And it's just a matter of, are we taking the time to be aware of God's presence with us. There's a song by Jason Upton that I love, and one of the lines just touched my heart so much. It says, Father, when you speak, I hope I'm listening. And it just really meant a lot to me, because it's like, that's what my heart is too. It's like, I know God, he's a good father, so he wants to talk to us. And so he's speaking, he's wanting to be with us. And we just need to take the time to kind of reflect on that and to look for where he is or listen to what he's saying to us. Actually, just today, I was having a little rest time, and I was like, okay, Lord, I'm just going to kind of imagine myself in a field of grass sitting on a blanket. And I was just kind of like hanging out with Jesus. And so I saw a picture of myself. And anybody who knows me knows I have my little Maltese dogs, and they are, my heart. They're my babies. Mm-hmm. And so in this kind of like a mental vision, what I was seeing was myself with my two dogs that I have now, plus one that has actually passed away a couple years ago. And the one that had passed away, he always had to be right with me. He was always had to be touching me. And he was so attuned to me. Like if he ever felt like I was upset, he would just come right over. He always wanted to be with me. And so what I felt like Jesus was saying to me, because I also saw a picture of Jesus on the other side of me, right close to me. And he was saying that just the way that my little Eli used to be so attuned to me and want to be right with me, like Jesus is like that too. He is right with us. And his love is always there. And so if we think about Psalm 23, which says, he leads me beside still waters, he makes me lie down in green pastures. That is God leading us to take a pause, to take a little bit of rest time and to listen for his voice, and to kind of be aware that he's with us. So that's where I find him is in the quiet, in my heart, when I've taken time to really, reflect on and listen. What's he saying? What's he showing me? But sometimes we do have to take a pause because we can get so busy with life that we can think about everything except that God is right here with us. And but he's always there. And I find that very comforting that, he is always, always with us. So I had this one scripture I was going to share in 1 John 2:24. Well, I'll back up just a little bit. Whoever embraces the Son embraces the Father also. So you must be sure to keep the message burning in your hearts. That is the message of life you heard from the beginning. If you do, you will always be living in close fellowship with the Son and with the Father. So I love that. If we keep that burning in our heart, that message of life burning in our heart, we will always be living in close relationship with the Son and with the Father.
That's so beautiful. I love what you said at the beginning about you find him in your heart. And then you talked about that scripture that he comes and makes his home in us.
Yes.
Is that like you find him in your heart because he is living in your heart? You hear that in the Bible, but you're someone who's experiencing that. That's where you find him. Tell me more about that.
Because Jesus says he's in the Father and we are in him. And so we're in the Father, but then he also says that he and the Father are making their home in us. And so I just find it amazing that, he's right there in my heart and I can tap into that anytime that I want to. And I love also, I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Andrew.
Yes.
Old, very, very, classic old book.
Yes.
But he was somebody that learned to just live in God's presence all the time. And he was simple, a humble person. But he was always finding joy in being in God's presence. And so, yeah, I find that God is with me and he's always speaking. It's kind of like the rivers of living water that are, it talks about in John 7, I think, I don't know. But the rivers of living water, that life is within us and we can drink from that. We can drink from his love. We can drink from his presence. In his presence is fullness of joy, it says in Psalm 16. And so when we're in his presence, when we realize that he's right with us, that's where we get healing. That's where we get joy, and the joy of the Lord is our strength. So that's where our strength and resilience comes from. So, yeah, it's ever since I really came to know God as my Father, I've just gotten such nurture and encouragement from knowing that he's right here, that he's always right here with me. And, the picture that I saw of Jesus right next to me, like, I just think it's so true of who he is. He's caring, he's loving, he wants to be with us, and he wants to speak to us. So, yeah, and it just takes a minute to sort of, for me, like, I'll just say, okay, I'm just going to take a breath for a minute. I'm just going to take a beat, pause, take a couple of slow, deep breaths, and kind of begin to focus on your heart. Because we operate so much out of our brain and our functional brain, which we have to so much of the time. But we connect with God in our heart. That's where we connect with God, is through our heart. And so it takes time to just kind of take a minute and just kind of begin to focus on your heart, and then begin to listen to what's God saying, what's he speaking.
Anna Harris, thank you for joining me today on Where Do You Find God? If you'd like to listen again, tune into Star each Wednesday morning at 10:30, or listen and subscribe via your favourite podcast app, and give us a review so others can find us.